That's Hamilton residents protesting at City Hall on June 4th after a data center was planned for construction in their city.
They were pretty clear that they wanted a giant, mega monster data center that was to be used for enterprise and commercial purposes. Their wording.
Nick Sergis is a health journalist and organizer in Hamilton.
Someone wrote a blog about it. That blog popped up on the Hamilton subreddit. I read it. I messaged my counselor. That was 2 weeks ago, and it's been a wild ride since then.
The protests in Hamilton are now part of a fast-growing movement across Canada that's rising up against a wave of planned data center projects. Data centers are physical facilities packed with servers. That's the hardware that stores and processes the information that supports the cloud, the global finance system, and AI models. But the ones planned for Canada aren't just your average data centers. Reflecting the lofty ambitions of Carney's new AI for All strategy to massively expand investment in AI data centers across the country, those coming to Canada are a lot bigger. And that's raising concerns. For The Breach, I spoke with experts and people on the front line to understand what's happening. I found out how they're fighting back, and remarkably, in places like Hamilton, how they're even starting to win. The scale of what's coming is hard to overstate. We can see that from this recent paper from York University, the first comprehensive mapping of Canada's growing landscape of data centers. Lindsay Rollheiser is an urban economist at York University who co-authored the paper. She's been tracking the data centers coming to Canada.
There are about 192 operating data centers and about 151 plus in the announcement or construction pipeline. And then of that 151, the vast majority of those are these larger data centers, so what is commonly referred to as hyperscale data centers.
Hyperscale data centers. These are commonly used to train AI models, but they're also massively disruptive. It's well documented that they emit noise and air pollution, have high water consumption, and use enormous amounts of energy, which often relies on fossil fuels and even raises electricity costs for locals. Right now we have 5 hyperscalers in Canada, but we're on the verge of getting another 96. The concerns aren't only related to the infrastructure. People are also worried about the downstream impacts of AI, like disinformation, job disruptions, and surveillance. All the while, the technology itself massively enriches billionaires and tech corporations. And most of them aren't or won't be Canadian owned.
What we did see, at least in terms of the data centers that are currently operating, the vast majority of them are American owned and operated. And going into the future, those in the pipeline, a lot of them will be owned and operated by European firms. We're not seeing a big Canadian footprint in the operation and ownership of the data centers currently.
All this has set up a showdown in Canada.
It's, I think a bit of an avatar in many ways for Canadians' distrust of AI broadly. This is sort of where the rubber hits the road. This infrastructure is a very specific and identifiable locus for some of those concerns and anxieties.
Myron Lowen, Associate Program Director at Urban Climate Leadership, is a policy researcher tracking regulatory gaps in the sector.
It's a bit of a Wild West. The scope and scale and the power that is used by some of the largest data center facilities is really unlike anything we've seen before. The speed with which the industry is moving is quite different than the speed with which local governments tend to move. And so it's presenting challenges on that front as well. The federal government has not demonstrated an interest in creating any incentives or regulations to date that would place any constraints on the data center industry in Canada. In fact, they've removed some constraints specifically in Alberta as a part of the MOU with the province of Alberta that exempts the data center industry from some other regulations that are applied to other industries with respect to energy consumption.
These data centers present an opportunity for major profits, with developers in the US making hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars on each hyperscale project, and without any regulation to slow things down. And that's especially true for Alberta, where over 90% of the new projects are planned.
So what we find is that they are locating where land is cheap. There is either grid access or, in Alberta's case, policy and regulations that would allow them to generate their own energy on site. And access to water is also really important factor as well. So these are different than kind of the data centers that we would have seen beginning in like the 2000s, which are kind of in our urban centers, very small. You wouldn't even know that they were there.
But now, even some major cities want hyperscalers too. Take Hamilton, where City Councillor Nrinder Nann voices her concerns.
In Hamilton, we also have like legacy impact from industry that's been given permissions to overpollute our air. Neighbors in my community are 20 years, have a 20-year less life expectancy rate than neighbors in other postal codes across my city.
So someone who lives in that part of Hamilton where they really want to put the data center, going to live 20 years less on average than someone who lives in a wealthier, more suburban area. Yeah, it's nuts, right? I think the reasoning was almost like, well, that land's already kind of, let's just put it there. That seems to be the mindset. But from the perspective of the people who live in Hamilton, they don't want it because it's going to objectively decrease their quality of life in several key ways. We know what those ways are: noise, water pollution, increased electricity costs, cost of living, brownouts, air pollution.
And of course, Sergis and Councillor Nann aren't alone here. The pushback has started shaping political decisions, like in Manitoba, where NDP Premier Wap Kinew recently rejected a planned hyperscale data center. He did that after a citizen petition collected over 13,500 signatures. Then in Alberta, Kevin O'Leary's Wonder Valley, which will be Earth's largest, has triggered the Sturgeon Lake Cree First Nation to fight back in a legal battle.
It's the government of Alberta not to require an environmental impact assessment on this project. And to us, that raised significant concerns with the water and the amount of gas, the amount of emissions that those generators are going to produce, the amount of heat that's going to be in that territory. It's going to create havoc in our territory.
A local resident has also petitioned the House of Commons to halt the project because of its fossil fuel use. The petition already has more than 9,000 signatures.
There's a lot of ways you could power such a thing, but they're using natural gases that would affect air quality, along with the drinking water, along with electricity and electricity bills for the people living in that area.
Cameron Coughlin is a student at Alberta University of the Arts. For her, the concerns around AI are bigger than just the data center.
So I'm an artist, so generative AI is overall not affecting me very well. It is risking people's jobs along with my own jobs.
Coughlin now runs Anti-AI Alberta, a Discord server where people exchange information about the fight.
I knew a teammate or a classmate of mine that was going to a meeting for anti-AI and wanted to make a kind of a community out of it.
Considering the public backlash and the known social and environmental ramifications of data centers, why then are local governments approving these projects?
For a resource-constrained local government, getting a project that could contribute to your tax base in as significant a way as an AI hyperscaler data center could is very, very tempting. And so the biggest tool in the toolbox for local governments is property tax. And when you get a large commercial project that's going to pay a lot of property tax, what I think a lot of local decision makers see is a way to take pressure off of their residents. And so I think that's a really important piece of context that we cannot neglect to consider. These decisions are taking place in the context of really resource-constrained local governments trying to deliver a huge number of services, often in rural communities across a massive land base with very few financial tools.
The thing is, it doesn't always pan out how municipalities want it to.
A municipality has the option to use tax incentives to encourage data centers to locate within or nearby their community. So of course, that is a cost to the taxpayer. And the assumption there is that there will be benefits in terms of property tax revenue or jobs. So again, that's an assumption that is being made. We're not seeing it in the data yet. If the local government sees a benefit, a true net benefit in locating these data centers in their communities, they need to show why and who benefits. And right now, we're not really seeing that information.
There's also lobbying at play here. The Federal Lobby Registry shows Capitol Hill Group, a major firm, lobbying the federal government on behalf of S2E Technologies, a potential developer in Hamilton, multiple times in the past year.
You better believe the people who want to build data centers in Hamilton, namely the federal government and others, are pretty aggressively lobbying our city councillors to allow these things to go through.
But local governments aren't really getting the full cost-benefit analysis from lobbyists.
So with the construction phase, which can last a long time, kicks up a lot of pollutants, like a whole lot. So there's an acute concern around increased ER visits during the construction phase. The municipality takes on all of that added cost and burden. And it's just something that they don't account for in their cost-benefit analysis. And that's something they've seen. There's been good reporting on that across the US.
In the US, the data center boom came earlier, but so did the rapidly growing resistance.
All the movements in the United States are truly inspiring, and if they are able to do that there, we are able to do that here as well.
Torin LaRocque was watching what was unfolding south of the border when he began organizing Vancouver's growing data center resistance movement himself. He eventually founded the group No AI Vancouver that now has over 7,000 followers on Instagram.
What we have done already in Vancouver, starting out with just myself for the entire first protest, organizing everything. Honestly, I feel the more we engage, the more we spread the word, the more the people are able to find us and help sign the petition and hopefully stop these data centers from being built.
I was writing about that stuff a year ago, observing it, watching it unfold in the US, in Australia. And now it's all happening right here in my backyard. I printed out about 1,000 of those and put them all over town. The sticker shop gave me a discount. They charged me $15 because everyone I've spoken to on the ground is on side. So these went everywhere, and I gave them, anytime I saw a business owner, they'd say, "Oh, can I take a stack?" Everyone wanted them. During all of this, we are in communication with groups from other cities who have asked for help and assistance getting their own operations up and running.
We actually have a group chat with all of those communities together. We talk very often, and we try to help each other to the best of our abilities when we can.
The non-profit Council of Canadians is helping with that coordination, providing resources to help communities fight back.
There's all kinds of different fronts on which people are concerned about or fighting AI. And so we organized the Civil Society Summit on the AI industry in Montreal last month to get people together to give them a space to talk to each other.
But of course, not everyone is concerned about AI and data centers. The federal government, for one, is pushing for Canadian AI sovereignty, but there's a bit of a caveat there.
They're not trying to create publicly owned AI. They're not trying to create AI that actually is useful for immediately for problems. They're trying to recreate the empire building model of AI, which is to steal everybody's intellectual property, dump it into this globe spanning training algorithm that just burns enormous amounts of fuel and water in order to get closer to some kind of AGI. And Carney believes in this stuff. That framing is being weaponized as an excuse to create domestically what we already have in the US, which is a billionaire-driven sort of tech oligarchy that is enabled by the government. Mark Carney is trying to create a homegrown tech oligarchy in Canada, but he's also letting the tech oligarchs from the US off the hook.
For too long, the pace at which industry and investment interests have been pandered to and quite frankly, co-opted inside of government. I think this is a very critical time in our country, in our province, and in our communities to say, enough with that trend. It is truly time to re-democratize our government and make sure that the people's will is represented.
It is the people versus these giant corporations, the few that actually run these companies versus the thousands of us who are protesting.
And that's what the fight against data centers really comes down to. It's about a fundamental demand for a democratic process.
If they want to build a tiny data center today, that data center could grow. There's no rules or guardrails or regulations currently in place to stop that data center from being privatized a year from now or massively scaled up. What we in Hamilton are really fighting for right now is the right for people to be actually consulted when the federal government decides it wants to put a big giant thing into a neighborhood that we know is going to harm people.
In June, the brewing fight over the data center in Hamilton reached a critical point.
We need to send letters to all our city councilors to let them know that we want no data centers in Hamilton. We want a moratorium, no loopholes. I'll see you in front of City Hall, 8:30 a.m., Wednesday, June 24th.
Hamilton is mobilized over this, and we're asking you to make rules before you make irreversible decisions.
The following week, Hamilton City Council voted. In the face of backlash from residents, a motion put forth by Councillor Nann passed, and it approved a moratorium. The City Council in Hamilton will now begin working on the first municipal framework in Canada for AI data centers, providing transparent evaluation requirements for future proposals based on their social and environmental impact.
I think that every single municipality across the country should be asking for this framework, where our provincial and federal governments haven't done their due diligence of putting forward the regulatory requirements for this new industry boom in our country.
You both must be exhausted. How are you feeling about this? Is this over right now? Is your role in the campaign over? I mean, you've got work to do, I'm sure, Councillor Nann. And for you, Nick, will you be continuing this fight?
I don't think it's over.
Yeah, it's far from over. It's just the beginning.